don't rush so much that common sense flies out the window. Pay attention to what you're doing and hopefully learn from my mistakes so you don't have to make the same one and can the darn thing twice. Well, welcome back to the kitchen. It has finally reopened and I'm so glad to be back in here. If you read my post last week, you know that my husband had the flu the entire week and could not handle any kind of cooking smells whatsoever. And the bedroom where I had him quarantined is just right around the corner. So there was no way I was going to get anything done in the kitchen last week. So I have a super long list of what I want to get done this week because I'm about to have a string of visitors coming into town and staying with us. And I don't want to be, sorry, can't go with you to the Grand Ole Opry because I'm going to stay here and can some corned beef. So anyway, there are a bunch of things I want to get done before that happens. So we're going to start on it today as fast as we can. It is 9 o'clock. All right, first thing I want to do is get some more bone broth done. As I mentioned in my video a couple of weeks ago about where my pantry stood and what needed to be done before the garden starts coming in. Bone broth is one of those things, beef bone broth in particular, that I'm running low on and I don't have any freeze dried. So I have about 8 pounds of beef knuckle bones that I'm going to start with today. I have a full video on how to do bone broth and to get multiple batches out of the same set of bones. So my plan is going to be slightly different this year. I'm not going to do all 4 sets canning. I'm going to do some freeze dried as well. So I have about 8 pounds of bones here. I'm going to go ahead and roast these, get those going, let them go for the first, it'll be 36 to 48 hours, kind of depending on how my time of day shakes out. And then from that batch, I'll go ahead and get some in the freezer to pre-freeze for the freeze dryer, and then I'll can the rest. And then I have another set of bones that I'll throw in the oven, roast, and put in there, and we'll go on to batches 2, 3, and probably 4 based on that. So I still get some really good, deep, strong broth for that, what I call batch number 1 of bone broth, when I really want the beef flavor to be front and center, and I want a really rich, deep broth. So that is my plan for these. I'm going to get these on the roasting pan and into the oven. So I'm going to go ahead and turn this on here. Okay, so I have it on 450. So we'll let that heat up. I'll get these on here in just a second. The other thing I want to do, and I mentioned this as really an urgent need a couple of weeks ago in that review of my pantry that I did, is fruit sauces. Now, I did a bunch of these last year. I did them as Christmas gifts, and then I kept some for us, thinking that we might use them on yogurt or, whatever. These are the best things ever. And I go through them like mad. I'm down to just a couple left now, and it's really urgent that I make some more of the little fruit sauces to go on my yogurt. All right, so let's get a move on. First thing I want to do here is get the peaches. So this is 5 pounds of peaches. I also have 5 pounds of blueberries, and then I have a smaller, let's see what this is. This is a 3-pound bag of strawberries from Sam's Club, so we'll be getting to that as well today. I'm going to use recipes from Pomona's Pectin, and by recipes I mean general suggestions of quantities is what I'm using. But because I'm not going to add pectin to these, I want it to be a sauce, literally just a sauce that you pour on top of yogurt. David likes it on ice cream. We've also used it on top of French toast, pancakes. Over the holidays, I used some in glasses of Prosecco for a party, and it was really fantastic. You can really essentially make a Bellini taste with just putting in some peach sauce into some Prosecco. That was really, really good. So yogurt, though, is our primary purpose for this, and we eat it every day. And I go through one of these jars for the 2 of us, probably 2.5 jars a week. So I'm going to be canning in 8-ounce jars this time. I didn't know how much we were going to love this last time. So that's my plan there. So let's get the peaches on. All right, it's going to take them a while to defrost. I pulled them out of the freezer this morning, but not quite enough time. I'm going to add a little bit of water so nothing scorches. And put this on low. And cover it, and we'll come back and check on it pretty often. So I want that to not only defrost, but to start to break down a bit. And then we'll go through the entire recipe, which is going to be super easy. Now what I want to do is get the bones. I need a knife. I'm going to get the bones ready for the roasting pan. And then I have some veggies that we need to cut up and get ready for that roasting pan as well. I mean, for the roaster. All right. I need a second pan, I think. Trying not to get my hands a total disaster. Okay. All right, I'm just going to give a little spritz on the top and a good bit of salt. So just spritzing with some olive oil just to kind of get things started. Because as briefly as they're going to be in the oven, won't have a chance for the fat to break down and kind of help these along. And let's do some salt and some pepper. So one of the reasons I'm doing this the way I'm doing it with the extra bones adding in is because I love having the full flavor bone broth on the shelf for when I really need that beefy flavor. So I don't want to sacrifice that. But at the same time, if I'm going to freeze something or freeze dry something and have it basically as bouillon, I want it to be packed with flavor as well. So I'm essentially going to do 2 first round batches of this and then move on to batch 2 or 3 or whatever we want to call it. All right, let's get this in. All right, those will go until I get a little bit of color on the bones, and then I'll turn them over, try to get a little bit of color on the other side, and then we'll get those into the roasting pan. All right, half an onion here. And I don't usually go buy veggies to put in my bone broth, but I didn't have anything in the freezer. Usually I just use scraps, and so I would put onion skins and any scraps of celery or carrots or whatever in a bag in the freezer. I didn't have any of that because I made, was it chicken or turkey broth not too long ago? I can't remember. But anyway, I made one of those and I used all my scraps in that, and I just haven't generated any more scraps since. So I actually had to go buy veggies to put in the broth. And I took the easy way out and went with baby carrots. So let me get these washed up, and then we'll get those into the bin. Okay, these are all washed up. So I'm just going to chop and drop. I want these in rather large chunks because I will fish them out between batches. Otherwise, they'll start to turn bitter on me. And my plan when I'm doing the multiple steps, now last time in the big video, I'll link it up above, where I did the entire process start to finish. I did not put a second round of vegetables in after the first batch, but that's simply because I didn't have any more. All right, I have a couple more onions as well, which we'll get to. I'll get this taken care of first. There is no set amount of veggies. You don't have to use any veggies in here. I am today. I don't always, as I mentioned before. Okay, these are baby carrots. I think I'm just going to throw them in as is. Now let's get another onion. That's a huge onion, yes? All right, I'm certainly not using the skins here. These are store-bought onions. So I don't know who's been touching my onion, but I don't want that in my broth. If you have grown your own and you feel good about it, throwing the skins in to a broth adds beautiful color. So this past week, I did a lot of cleanup in the garden. I told you we had so much wind. There were a couple of houses in my neighborhood that were directly struck by lightning, so that was kind of scary. We had lots and lots and lots of sirens going off and flashing red lights, and I don't know, it was kind of nuts. So anyway, nobody was injured in that, just some property damage. So that was at least very good. But the winds were just crazy, and it left a lot of damage in the garden, and it made me put off putting my brassicas in because I wanted to, I didn't want to lose them, basically, or have them beaten to death in the storms. So I feel like I got a very late start on that, but I did get those in, and they're starting to recover from transplant shock, so that's really good. I need a towel. I've got some garlic that is already peeled. If you store peeled garlic in the fridge, if you put a little towel in the bottom of a jar, it keeps it fresh forever. This has been going in my fridge for, my goodness, 3 or 4 weeks, and it's still perfectly fine, as you can see. But back to the garden. So I did get those in. They are looking good. I have a lot of leftover plants, and I think I've got 1 or 2 that probably aren't going to survive either the storms or something that has been nibbling on, one in particular. So I have some extras, and I will probably in the coming few days decide which ones need to be replaced. And then I think I'm going to take the rest of those transplants and turn them into like a greens powder. So I'll just decapitate them, right? They're pretty big transplants. And just use all of that green to make a freeze-dried green powder. That sounds pretty fun for me. It's not something I normally do. We don't eat smoothies, that kind of thing. But I would like that on occasion in sauces, and it's easy to throw into spaghetti sauce, and David will think it's parsley or something. So I do have to hide a bit of that. All right, let's get, I'm just using dried herbs because I don't really have any fresh right now. I like some rosemary. I wish I had some tarragon. I wish I had some tarragon, but I don't. Okay, so I've got some bay leaves and some thyme. We'll do some of this as well. Some big ones in there. All right. And some thyme. I love thyme. Oh gosh, I love thyme. So I've got a little bit of that in the garden that hopefully will recover. All right, let's get in some apple cider vinegar. Make sure we draw out all the good stuff in the bones. All right, I'm going to clean up this mess, and then let's check on these peaches. So that's a 22 quart roaster, and I'm gonna pretty much fill that up with water to turn into broth. Waiting around for fruit to thaw and bones to brown is driving me a little nuts. I'm just standing here waiting. So I'm gonna go ahead and get another batch of yogurt started. Tell you, this yogurt maker that I bought has just been amazing. We just love it. So I'm gonna add, that was a probiotic capsule. I like to add that in addition to the regular yogurt cultures that'll come in with the yogurt itself. That's a little bit of inulin. I'm gonna add a little bit of my current yogurt. You can see how thick this is. I do a long time processing on that. And I'm gonna add the whey as well. That'll be our little starter culture. Use this A2 half and half, which has just been great for me. They were carrying it in my really close by Kroger. Now Kroger has stopped carrying it. They're like, well, we'll order it for you. Well, they can't tell me when, and they won't tell me when it comes in. I'm like, well, that's not terribly user-friendly. So I have to go all the way across town to the closest Publix. But that's okay. I can buy 4 or 5 at a time. And it has quite a long shelf life. This has been in my fridge for a couple of weeks, so call it since March 1st, and the best to buy date is May 2nd. So I'm okay buying several at a time. I'd just rather do it just down the street instead of across town, but that's okay. So I have a little yogurt maker that sits in my appliance closet, and all I do is set the time and temperature, and it'll tell me when it's done in 32 hours. And then I stick it in the fridge overnight before I can eat that first batch. I'm gonna go get this in the yogurt machine down the hall. Then we're gonna take the bones and get those in the roaster oven. I filled that already with 10 quarts of water, so we'll see how much more I can add to that, because I do want it relatively full, because I want to get as much out of this run as I possibly can. Okay, the bones are roasty toasty, so let's get those in here. I have added 10 quarts of water. If I can get more, I will add some more. Let's see what happens when I put the bones in. Also, you saw me add all of the veggies and the herbs and the salt and pepper to the bones here. Ew. Normally, I would make my bone broth with some marrow bones as well, at least 1 part marrow bones. However, I didn't do it this time because I am going to be freeze drying. And while I love having some fat in the canned version, I don't want too much fat in the freeze dried version. So I'm going to go ahead and dump this fat in here for flavor. I will be straining off fat before I put it on the freeze dryer trays. Okay, yes, I can definitely fit some more water in. Question is, how to get this in there. So those marrow bones produce much more fat. Makes for a really incredible broth. You don't want to do all marrow bones, I don't think. At least I don't. But having those in there is really terrific, but it's not going to happen this time. Okay, I already have this turned on. I'm at 275, so it can get brought up to temperature pretty quickly. Oh, I want to add some more water. Hang on. This is another 2 quarts, so that'll take us to 12 quarts. All right. Let's see where we are with these peaches. One of the things I want to do is taste one of these, just for sweetness level. Oh yeah, these are good. So I have some idea of how much sweetener I want to add. Now, the recipe, it's a Pomona's pectin. It's a low sugar recipe. It does call for sugar. I don't use sugar in my, well, I don't use sugar. Let's basically just go with that. I use allulose instead. Allulose is not one of those things that anybody has said, yes, you can use it in home canning, because they haven't tested it for home canning. They have tested it for commercial canning. There are lots of studies on allulose and its heat safety. So anyway, do your own research on that. I love it. I've been using it for 3 or 4 years now. This was made with allulose. So this is a year old. This is 2024. You will find that with allulose, it doesn't hold the color as well as sugar does. It doesn't do that. And if you're making actual preserves, it doesn't necessarily hold the texture as well as sugar does, or really much at all. So if you're going to do something with allulose in a canning situation, I would stick to a 12 to 18 month supply, because it will start to discolor. It won't go bad, it won't taste bad, but it won't be nearly as pretty as this is now. All right, let's taste a peach. Taste half a peach. Okay, those are good. They're not nearly as sweet as the fresh peaches I used last time. So I will keep that in mind, because my yogurt, because I run it for 32 hours, is quite tangy. So I do like some sweetness on top of that. Now I've been keto for off and on for ages. So I don't necessarily like things super sweet. So I won't do mine super sweet. But if you're doing this at home, whether you're using sugar, allulose, honey, whatever it is you want to use and feel good about using, have done your research on using, just do it to your taste. We're not adding any pectin. We don't have to worry about any kind of ratios for that. We don't have to worry about set, because we don't want it to set, right? Now I will be adding lemon juice, and I will be also testing it. So I always have my pH strips handy when I'm doing water bath canning, particularly if I'm going off script at all. Now I'm not going to measure out the 4 cups, which you need to do if you're going to use pectin and that kind of stuff to make sure you get the right set. So the recipe is based on using the 4 cups. Number 1, I'm doing at least a double recipe. Number 2, it's unclear in the recipe whether they start with whole peaches with skin and pits and everything. And that's how they get their 3.5. Let me see. Peach. Yeah, the recipe calls for 3¼ pounds of fully ripe peaches. Now, to me, that means skin and pit intact, and that's how you weigh the 3¼ pounds. Well, that's not how mine started. So I'm guessing that's maybe 2½ pounds peeled and pitted, and I have 5 pounds in here, so I'm roughly doubling the recipe. So that's how I'll start looking at how much lemon juice I need to add, and then I'll confirm everything with the pH strips. The other thing I'm going to do is get my canner set up and ready to go. I'm using the steam canner today. I'm using 8-ounce jelly jars today instead of those little 4-ounce jars. If you don't have a steam canner yet, that's one of the many, many things I love about the steam canner, is that was all the water it took. So not only is it not wasting water on me, but it leaves me with an amount that I can actually carry and dump when I'm done with it, rather than my big water bath canner where I have to shovel out water and dump it pitcher full by pitcher full. All right, let's see. One batch makes 4 to 5 half pints. So I'm going for 10 half pints. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And I'm going to put an extra half pint, and then I'm going to add a quarter pint as well to catch any overflow so that I'm ready. So all of my jars are washed. I've got everything ready last night. My lids and my rings are ready. I'm going to get these heating up gently. Okay, let me bring you in and show you the peach sauce. Well, it's not really a sauce yet, but I think that's going to take a few trips with that. I may even put it in the blender. We'll see. And take a little taste and see what the consistency is like. Oh, I can still feel peaches in there. Yeah, I think I might put that in the blender, but I'm going to go ahead and add my lemon juice. Let's get the allulose in there as well. The recipe actually calls for maple syrup, 3/4 of a cup of maple syrup per batch. So my target is kind of 1.5 cups of allulose. You can see that this is so thick and bubbling. I have whole peaches that managed to escape me, floating around in there. All right, I'm just going to add a cup at first, just a 1/2 cup measure. And then let's get our lemon juice in there, because that is certainly going to affect how much sweetener I need. So the pH of peaches runs between 3.3 and 4, 3.5 and 4, somewhere in there. So I'm not too worried about it, but we will certainly double check everything. That was just shy of 1/2 cup. It's a monster spoon, right? But since we eat yogurt every day now, I find that I run out of these little teaspoons all the time. So I'm going to try to use these big old, I don't know, big soup spoon. I'm not sure what they are, but they never get any use. Okay, I'm going to go sweeter on that. I'm going to go ahead and add the full amount of lemon juice that is suggested, so I don't have to come back and readjust the sweetener if I need to redo that. I can definitely take it. Okay. So that puts me at the amount of maple syrup that it recommends. This is allulose, as I mentioned, which is 70% as sweet as sugar, so not quite as sweet as sugar. How that compares to maple syrup, though, I don't really know, and I don't remember how much allulose I used last time. But again, I had fresh, very ripe peaches last time I made this. I'm going to put this in a blender, get a better consistency. This is more like applesauce consistency. And I've really enjoyed the smooth consistency in the yogurt. That's really good. I think I'm going to add a little more allulose though. So I'll call it another 1/4 cup. Remember, my yogurt is really tart. This still would not be sweet enough probably for folks who are used to eating sweet things. I'm just not anymore. See how many bits and things I still have in there? I hope you can see that on the camera. I'm definitely going to put it through the blender, get a smoother consistency. But the sweetness is perfect. Now what I want to do is a pH strip test. See, this is the one I use. I'll link it down below. This is a tiny little box. I bet I've had it 3 or 4 years now, and I still have a bunch left. So I think it's like $10. Quite a deal, right? It looks like you wouldn't get any use out of it, but it has lasted forever. All right, so let's take this. Okay, let's see if I can do this where you can see it. So I'd say we're between a 3 and a 3.5 here. You want to be below 4.6 for safe water bath canning, so I feel really good about that. Because I'm not doing this in a lab and I don't have calibrated testing and stuff, I really like to be 4.0 and below. I wouldn't feel totally comfortable if I got what I thought was a 4.5 test result on the strip. But probably a 3, but somewhere between a 3 and a 3.5, and I hope you can see that really well. All right, so that's good to go. I'm going to pull out the blender. Okay, I've kind of moved us over to this side here so I can have room for the blender, and you can join me there. I'm going to just take this a couple of scoops at a time, and then I'm just going to can it right straight from there. My jars are hot. My sauce is hot, so that's very important. I'll do this in about a half a batch. All right. Ooh, that is steamy. All right, let's see how that consistency is. Oh yeah. Okay, that's much better. No chunks in there. That is perfect. The sweetness is just great. All right, let's take jars. So I'm going to fill these to a 1/4 inch, and then I'm going to process them in the steam canner, or you could use a water bath canner. It'd be the same amount of time, just one little difference I'll tell you about. So I'm going to do it for 10 minutes. I'm below 1,000 feet. You will need to adjust according to your elevation if you are higher than 1,000 feet. So I will put that little chart down below. Make sure you go check that, because if you are in Denver, the last thing you want to do is process something for 10 minutes and not have it all the way there, because the elevation affects the temperature of the water. All right, so let's get, I wonder if I can just pour it. How big of a mess am I going to make? We'll see. All right. Now I'm going to wipe those rims with some white vinegar. Some lids. These are going to go in the steam canner and wait for me to get the next batch in there. So if you don't have a steam canner, as I mentioned, not only is it awesome because it doesn't use so much water and it's light, I think I don't know, I'm a long time water bath canner, but I do feel like it doesn't cook the food as much. I don't know. I don't know that that's legit, but I do feel like I get a slightly fresher product coming out of the steam canner than I do coming out of a water bath. May just be my imagination, but that's how I feel. All right, let's get another batch blended up. So I got 12 half pints out of 5 pounds of frozen peaches. Started with a little less than half a cup of water just to make sure that that they weren't going to burn or stick to the bottom of the pan when they were still frozen. Like 6. So all 12 of my half pints fit perfectly in the steam canner. So that's fantastic. So I'm going to get all cleaned up and we're going to do the next fruit right away. I think I'm going to do strawberries next and then finish with blueberries. I'm also going to need to wash up some more jars because I used more than I expected with the peaches. So this is going to go for 10 minutes because I'm below 1,000 feet. And then with a steam canner, after I turn off the heat at the end of 10 minutes, the lid is going to stay on for another 5 minutes. And then I can remove them. You know, if you're going to water bath this, you turn it off after your processing time and then you take the lid off and let it come down in temperature. But these are going to stay with the lid on and then we'll take those out. I probably won't have the strawberries ready by then, but we'll see how far we can get. They have now been in the sink defrosting, well, since about 7 o'clock this morning. All right, I'm going to clean up. All my tools are cleaned up. That's how much peach sauce I had left over. So that, with a big hunk of peach in it, that'll be going on my yogurt tomorrow. So I'm not going to worry about not being able to can as much as I could have because that's just perfect. I couldn't have filled a 1/4 pint. Anyway, all right, let's get the strawberries going next. Now again, this is not quite going to be a double batch. So I probably don't need this big pan, but I'm not going to dirty another pan while we're doing this. So they look pretty good. They look better to me than the last round of fresh strawberries. I got, which were like totally white on the inside. Okay, again, I'm going to add about 1/4 cup of water. Put the lid on here and get those defrosting. So this has already, it's come up to the right level to start the timer, so that is started. And I have about 7 minutes left on that. So while we get all of that done, let me tell you about the recipe for this one. This one calls for 1 3/4 pounds of strawberries. So I've got almost a double batch on that one, almost a double batch. And then if we exclude the calcium water and Pomona's pectin, because I'm not going to want this to set, I'm not turning it into jam, it calls for 1 cup of unsweetened white grape juice concentrate. Well, I'm not going to use that either. I'm going to use water, and then I'm going to add allulose to this. Now this, it does not call for any lemon juice at all. So strawberries typically have a pH of about 3.5. Very similar to the peaches, although the peaches can range up quite a bit. So I'm going to keep a good eye on that. I'll probably add a little bit of lemon juice because it does help preserve some of the color, whereas the allulose is not doing that same job that the sugar would be doing. So we'll just kind of play around with that, make sure we get the sweetness right and the pH right. I didn't do a very good job turning the camera back on. The timer went off, but I had run upstairs to check on the dog and cats because it was like way too quiet, and that just never happens in my house when those guys are all together. So everybody's just sitting peacefully in their separate little areas on the sofa, so all is good. But I ran back down when the timer went off and I forgot to turn the camera on. Okay, so I have my jars back in here. I have 8 half pints and 1/4 pint just in case I have overflow. All right, let's take the stick blender to the strawberries and see where we are. Okay, it's a gorgeous shade of pink. All right, let's get my tasting spoons going on here. Now the recipe doesn't call for any added sugar, but it does use that white grape juice, which of course adds plenty of sugar from the grape juice. So I'm going to taste it. Oh yeah, we are a long way off on that. Definitely need some sugar. Strawberries may be one of those things I decide I really only want to do fresh when they're right in season. Let's see. Here we go. Still more. That's about 3/4 of a cup I've put in there now. All right, the sweetness is good, but now I want to test the pH, because if I need to add some lemon juice, I'm going to have to adjust that sweetness again. Okay, so let's see if you can see this now. Kind of about a 2.5. Okay, so I'm not worried about the pH. I do think I want a little bit of lemon juice just for some brightness of flavor though. So I'm going to add a little bit. About 1/8 of a cup. Taste again, just the sweetness, and then I'll measure one more time. Oh, the brightness really helps quite a bit. Just a little more sugar. So let's call that, all right, so that's now about a full cup of sugar, I think. I'll have to look back at the video to see. That's what it is. That's a half cup measure. So you could double check me. Okay, that's terrific. Now let's test the pH again. Wipe the jam off the test side. So, yeah, we're at that 2.5. So totally fine to can, obviously. And I think the flavor is good. So I'm going to run that through the blender. Okay, so this was kind of funny. I put the test strip down on the little plate that I had just washed, and there was still some water on it. So you can see how the part that hit the water is darkest green. This only goes up to 6.0, and my tap water is about 7 on the dot. So we got a good color differentiation there. That was kind of fun. All right, let's get some strawberry sauce in the blender. I'm gonna do this in a smaller batch and really let it go. Isn't that gorgeous? Oh, that's a much better sauce consistency. Okay, I'm going to get the jars out. All right, the dog decided to speak up to the neighbors outside, so I had to get her in. So let's get back to this. These jars are good and hot. In fact, the canner is like almost ready. All right, again, we're going for that 1/4 inch, and I assume these are 10 minutes as well. Yep, 10 minutes processing time. Again, adjust that for your elevation. That is the most beautiful color. Boy, that one went on. Okay. All right, let's get the rest of this blended. It's like a peachy pink color. It's just really gorgeous. That will, of course, vary based on how ripe your berries are. If you're picking them fresh and they're red all the way through, yours will be much redder. This is kind of a fun color. Yep. Okay. I don't have enough to can this one here, but I will stick this in the fridge for eating fresh. Six. I did end up getting 8 out of this, so that's good. Okay, these are ready to go in. All right, I'm going to bring the canner up to the proper temperature for processing. Start that timer for 10 minutes. I'm going to get the poor pitiful dog a treat, wash up again, get all this mess washed up, and we'll get ready to do the blueberries. Let's taste this first. Now, that consistency is great for my purposes. Now, let's hope it doesn't separate. Oh, it's fantastic. Fantastic. I have not done strawberry before for this purpose, so that's very exciting. Okay, now I'm going to get cleaned up. The strawberry sauce is finished. It's time with the burner on. So I've turned the burner off and set the timer for 5 minutes. So let's get the blueberries underway. This is a 5-pound bag of blueberries from Azure Standard. I ordered them from Azure Standard last time as well. Whoa, this is going to be a full pot. So I think that because these are last and small, we are on our way to defrosting a little faster than the others. I'm going to get those on gently, add about a half a cup of water so that nothing scorches or sticks to the bottom. All right, put a lid on that one. I want to read you the recipe. This is the same blueberry jam recipe from what I showed you this morning. Did I show it to you this morning? No, but it's what I tried this morning on my yogurt. And we love it. Perfect sweetness, perfect everything. So this is the Simple Classic Blueberry Jam on page 45 of the Pomona's Pectin cookbook. It uses 2 1/4 pounds of blueberries. Now I'm doing slightly more than a double batch because this is 5 pounds of blueberries. It would use, for a single batch, a 1/4 cup of lemon juice. So again, my target will be about half a cup, maybe a smidge more of lemon juice. We're not using the calcium water or the pectin. It uses 1 cup of sugar. So for a double batch, I'll probably, and I know I used what it told me to use last time, so I went a little over a cup because allulose isn't as sweet. So I'm going to use probably a little over 2 cups of allulose in here. Not what I was going for. I had one just blow its lid here, so I don't know whether I wasn't paying attention, didn't tighten down the lid enough, but yeah, it went everywhere. I've had to wipe all of these up. So I'm going to try to get this one cleaned up. This is the strawberry sauce that had blown its lid. So it is going to shake up. Well, when I can shake those up, I will, and then hopefully it'll sit on the shelf, on the pantry shelf like this. But this one, because it is not sealed, obviously, is going to go in the fridge, and we'll start having that this week. So that, I'm going to pretend that's fun and not a disappointment that they didn't all do perfectly. All right, so let's look at the blueberries. Now, watch out for splatters. Okay, we're good on the pH, we're good on the sweetness. So, we're going to blend the heck out of this. Oh, again, a beautiful color. You see this? Viscosity is good, but I think I'm going to strain it. Let's taste it. Yeah, I'm going to strain it. All right, I have a fine mesh strainer and a bowl. And I'm just going to pour this through. It's pretty good. That is the finest mesh I have. I don't think it would go through a cheesecloth. All right, let's go ahead and get some more in there to blend up. It is 2 days later, and we have a lot of work to do today. I want to start by doing a little postmortem on the fruit sauces. And I thought about just eliminating the fruit sauces from this, and I'll just show you the process next time I do it. But I thought, you know, I made this mistake after doing this for decades. Somebody else, particularly someone new, is going to make the same mistake. So I'm just going to go ahead and we're going to talk about it. So the peaches, this was the biggest offender. This is not, I'll bring you in a minute so you can see these up close, but this is not the consistency I'm looking for in a peach sauce. It is not the consistency I had last time. Anyway, that is not what I want. This is the strawberry sauce. This is gorgeous, but do you know why this is gorgeous? This is gorgeous because I reprocessed it. So I'll tell you how I fix that in a minute. This is the blueberry sauce, and it's perfect. Did not have to reprocess this one, and I'm going to tell you why that is in a minute. So I was re-watching the footage from 2 days ago, and I'm watching myself put it in the blender and then pour it into the jars, and I'm thinking, Carter, that is so not right, because what the blender does is it aerates whatever's in there, right? So it whips up all this air into the peach sauce. So even though there was no foam on top, you know, we debubbled everything, there was air trapped in the peach sauce. So what I should have done was either strain it, like I did this one, which gave those air bubbles a chance to get out, or I should have put it back in the pot and let those air bubbles kind of bubble themselves off for a few minutes. So I reprocessed this one. I put all of this through the strainer, and then I put it in the pot, brought it back up to temperature, because the recipe processing time is written for hot fruit sauce. So I needed to get this hot again, because if I put it in to process for the 10 minutes cold, it would not have been the proper processing time. So that completely solved this problem, and this one is just great. So today I'm going to redo these. I'm not going to make you watch the whole thing, but I will give you a quick overview of how I'm going to fix this. Alrighty, so let's do the taste test. I will tell you that David had the strawberry version this morning and loved it. All right, so I have, this is my morning yogurt. I'm going to bring you in to see this. Here's the peach sauce, which has been in the fridge. Remember, this was the leftover, so this has had a chance to settle down and kind of debubble itself, right? The consistency is a whole lot different than the one in the jar. Here's the strawberry, and here's the blackberry. All right, I'm going to bring you in and we'll take a look. This is the blueberry. You can see that, super consistency. This is the strawberry. You can see that one is exactly what I want it to be. And then this is the peach. You can see all those little air bubbles. This one is going to get reprocessed today. All right, let's taste all of these and show you how they pour once they have kind of debubbled themselves. All right, I have not shaken any of these, and nobody's separated. Everything is good. So here's the peach. And we'll do the blueberry. And let's do the strawberry. All right, let's get the taste test done. Here's the peach. It's great. Terrific, smooth consistency, perfect sweetness. It tastes great. So I just need to get the bubbles out of those jars. Here's the strawberry. David said this one was amazing. Excited to try it. Oh my goodness. David was right. That one is excellent. Okay, blueberry. This one is so pretty on the white yogurt. Oh, that one's great too. So the taste on all of these is perfect. This consistency came out just fine first time around because I ran it through the strainer. This consistency is now fine in the current jars because I reprocessed it. And this consistency is fine in this jar, but not so much in those jars. So that I'm going to redo today. The peach sauce is out of the canner and it looks great this time. So thank heavens. Try to do it right the first time. Don't have to do it a second time. Let's take a look at the bone broth. It's been 48-ish hours since I got it in there. So let's go ahead and take that out. It's time to do the first load. I realized I only have 2 empty freeze dryer trays right now. So I'm going to go ahead and can 8 pints of the first batch, and then I can get a couple of quarts worth on those freeze dryer trays. I have the second round of bones in the oven, so as soon as I'm done processing this through, those will be ready to go in, and we'll start batch number 2 and see what this looks like. I know folks have had issues with keeping the liquid in there. They say it goes down too much, and then they want to know if, oh gosh, that's hot. And then they want to know if they can add water to it. So don't add water to it. Take what you have, and then you can run your second batch. And just be careful that you really have a good seal. If you need to put a little liquid along the edges here to give you a better seal, go ahead and do that. A little bit of oil you could put, leave a little bit of an opening so some steam can escape. But otherwise, as long as you are keeping the liquid in, you should be good. There's a good bit of fat in this one, as you can see. So I'm going to get the stuff out, and then we're going to do the fat separator. And I'm going to get rid of all of these vegetables, because if they go through a second round, they will turn bitter. I am going to leave these bones in though. It smells fantastic. I have tasted this for seasoning, and the batch that I put in the freeze dryer, I will add some seasoning to and retaste it. The batch that's going in these jars right here, because I sometimes give extras to the animals, I don't want them too well salted. Some salt is good for the animals, but not too much. So I tend to always take that into account. Okay, we'll check for more veggies as soon as I get much of this broth out of the way. I'm going to want that cool a bit before I stick it in the trash. My jars here that are hot and ready to go. I have my lids ready, new rings ready. Let's put this in the fat separator. I'm going to let that sit for just a minute, let the fat come to the top. You can see how much is in there. I will certainly use that for something else. I'm going to collect all the fat in this quart jar. It's not going to be canned, it'll go in the fridge, and I will use it for something. I don't mind a little fat in these jars for flavor. But the majority of it I'm going to put in this other jar. The jar looks great. Okay, let's finish this. You'll notice I'm not going through all the extra effort to run this through cheesecloth. I just, quite frankly, don't have the time today to do that. But that's okay. I don't mind having a little thyme or rosemary. See that there's much less fat in there now. So it ought to be easier to separate for the freeze dryer. Or quicker to separate, I should say. Okay, so I'm going to get these in the pressure canner. They're going to go for 20 minutes, and then they will be done. I'm going to go ahead and take this out, get it, make sure it's exactly how I want it seasoned to become bouillon, and then I'm going to let that cool off, separate the fat, and then put it on the freeze dryer trays. And then I'm probably going to have plenty left, so I may go ahead and plan a second round of canning with what's left of this. Then I'll get the bones in, add another 11 or so quarts of water, and we'll just start this whole process again, veggies and all. So I'll still be working on this by the time this video comes out. I'll be on around 3 or 4 or something by then. My guests arrive Friday afternoon, so I don't think I'm going to have time to do a dog round on this, but if I do have time to do at least a quick round to can some broth for the dogs, that's how I rehydrate her food, then I will do that before they get here. But I don't want them to walk into the smell of bone broth. It's not exactly what I'm going for, but I will certainly can up as much as I can And I look forward to seeing you again soon. As I mentioned in my post, I have a bunch of guests coming in week after week after week after week up until getting close to preservation season. So I'm going to have fun with them. I'm going to take a little break, and I urge you to take a little break, get your pantry stocked with all the stuff that doesn't rely on your garden. And if you're like me, trying to get through a whole bunch of projects, don't rush so much that common sense flies out the window. Pay attention to what you're doing and hopefully learn from my mistakes so you don't have to make the same one and can the darn thing twice. So I hope you have a wonderful next few weeks, and I will see you soon, ready to go. Bye-bye.